Welcome to Factorio Base Tour. My name is Nilas, and today we are going to look at an absolutely amazing base. This is created by Ruspartisan, who is a longtime member of the community, who is always helping me with optimizing my train system. So needless to say, this base is going to be heavily focused on trains and the absolutely brilliant train system that he has put together. So basically, why you want to see this and why this is so interesting is because, well, it's a Deathworld base, and it's 2000 science per minute, which is impressive in and of itself. But the really brilliant part is that looking at this base and reverse engineering how he built the train system has actually persuaded me that Logistic Train Network mod is no longer needed. There have been many other variants of making it with circuit controls, but the circuit controls here are so simple that you don't really need to actually you need that mod anymore. So let's dive into this brilliant base and take a look at what it can offer for us and give you some inspiration as well. Let's start with the overview, and you can see here we have a heavily focus on grids, and it is a city block base. Each of the city blocks, and they are maybe not that's visible, but they are here. They are standard 100 by 100, and you can see that some of the patterns here should be familiar. But there are many things that are unique here that I'm really liking, and I want to sort of maybe adopt myself. Granted that this is a Deathworld, it's also really important to have a strong perimeter defense, so let's just have a look at this before we dive into the train system. This perimeter defense, it's very robust. It uses the advantage of the city blocks by just being something you can copy and paste along the road, along the entire perimeter. It's very simple, but it gets the job done, and that's the main part of it. And also sort of interspersed here and there. Where do we have it? We have some artillery turrets that just keep things at bay. As we are crossing the field, let's have a look at the production. Look at the science to confirm this. We have 2100 science per minute, so it is, and sort of the normal classification of what you can expect from a megabase of sorts. And this beautiful design here is something we're going to dive much more into, because that's really the core part of this. What we're having here is the science facility. There's a single science facility that takes up about 2 city blocks here of space, and it's designed so we can see the trains come in here, and you can get all this scary amount of circuits, but it is not actually that scary. So we will be focusing the majority of the time not on the actual designs, because they are, a lot of them are either sort of things I've also built in my base, but they are also with slight variations, but that's not really the core part here. The core is the train infrastructure and train systems. So let's take a look at the infrastructure first. To look at the infrastructure, we should be starting with the zoom out view, and you can see there's these big roundabouts. They take up an entire city block, and let's just go take a look at one of these in details. Walking on the Spider-Tron is quite comfortable because now we are pretty safe. So what this is, it stretches actually just inside the next, so it's okay. I mean, you gotta be kind of aware of this. This has, according to Ruspartisan, who has designed it, it has 60 trains per minute, so 1 per second it can handle through here, which is a significantly more than the normal, like Celtic knots and other intersections. And the reason you can see is, by the way, it only works for 1/4 trains, so don't even try throwing other things in here. This is for 1/4 trains. The idea is that they will easily get into the build, into here, and then other things, as soon as they are in here, other things will come past. And you can see here, if it has to do a left turn, please do a left turn. Yes, it did. Yep, there we go. So it goes in, and then it picks a path, and then it can wait at multiple locations inside the facility, which means that it doesn't block very much. You can see how easily they can go through. So this is a really cool design, and yeah, I might use it. It has a nice feel as well, nicely contrasting the city blocks. The other part is that I really like as well here is the how to do in here. And this is also interesting. It's something that honestly, personally, I've struggled a bit with. Oh, it's dancing. Anyway, that's why I'm not running around in Spider-Tron usually, because it's too distracting. The point here is that let's not take this one. I wanted to go with somewhere where we have 1/4 trains. Ah, come on, give me 1/4 trains. Give me 1/4 trains. There. We have 1/4 trains here. And what you can see is that you have room for one train and you have room for another train. And on top of that, you can have 3 tracks here. So I think this is an absolutely phenomenal usage of the space here by basically solving a number of the problems that I've had. I've had the issue that I can only have one train because I like going sort of curving it in and going out. But this one has, you come from here, you drive around and go in, which means that there can actually be a second train here, and that means you can set the train limit to 2 instead of 1, which makes an absolute huge difference on train throughput and sort of the lead time here, or not the lead time, the amount of wasted time between one train departs and another one comes in. So great addition and a great way to put it in. That means a lot of this site, a lot of these, not actually all of them, because you kind of have a district here. Each of those can have 6 inputs, and that should be enough for pretty much everything. Not for satellites, but that's kind of a different matter. That's a special case, but you can deal with that as well. So that's the train infrastructure, a really high throughput roundabout here that services all locations and looks brilliant. And also these stations here that fit into the sort of the side of the city block, it only works because there are 2-lane systems, and I've never really considered it. I've always been sort of hard stuck on the 6-lane or the 4-lane system, and I don't think it's necessary. If I look at this, there are so many alternate paths through the system that it actually doesn't need to get the inbounds and outbounds here. So I'm going to take note of this, and I'm sure that with Ruspartisan designing it, I'm also sure that there has been ample throughput testing as well. Activating the train station name, you can see that stations are named with a requester or a provider icon, so you know if it's a provider or requester station. Also quite clever. We also have some depots here. These depots are enabled to 1. That means each depot can handle 1 train only. Oh, it actually has distance now. And you have 172 trains. The depots serve a number of features, actually. They serve primarily the fact that this is where trains get loaded with fuel. That's good. But it also serves a secondary and actually quite interesting perspective. So the depots are only in here. There are no depots out here in the outskirts. And that means that, for example, when you have a train will actually go to, when it's done, or at least the raw material trains will, after they're done loading, instead of waiting at the loading station, they will go to a depot, which means that they'll kind of be brought back into the network, where it'll be easier from that point to summon it to where it's requested, instead of when we have a requester station for iron, such as this one. When it requests, then instead of requesting it all the way from, oh, that's the depot. Instead of requesting it all the way out from the ore location, you're actually requesting it from a depot that's somewhere nearby. I like that as well. It's kind of functioning as a buffer chest, like and buffer chest in the same sentence. I don't know what's going wrong, but I like it because it takes the trains that are usually very far from the center of the base and bring them in so that they are easily requested to where they're needed. Great point. Now we are going to use this location as our go through the circuit network, because before you just freak out and close the video, it is so simple that I can get it. I mean, that just says how simple it is. Looks a lot more daunting than it is, but I can explain it to you in a very easy way, and then we'll go through how it actually works in the circuits. But what this does is it takes advantage of the train limits in a dynamic way, so that it manages how many trains can actually be requested based on supply and demand, which is brilliant. And then this means that with the depots for refueling and sort of immediate dispatching, with the train limits, you really don't need Logistic Train Network at all anymore. And I think I'll adopt a setup such as this. Let's start by looking at the train schedules. They are pretty simple. They go to the depot, wait for 1 second of inactivity. That means they will be done with the loading, and they just go full empty. This is how I like building my schedules. Very simple, and then have the logic on the train, on the stations, instead of logic on the train. They're all kind of the same. These ones have an extra depot because after it's done loading, we want to bring it in here to the depot, so it's close by from the provider, from where it's provided, where it's located. And you can see it makes no distinction of whether the screen circuit is used for a blue circuit build or for a green science build, it doesn't matter. It's just a requester for green circuits. So let's take a look. I'm going to explain how a provider station works. In this case, this is the provider station. This is providing the speed modules to the network. And the way it works is, first it says, well, this station can at maximum contain 2 trains. So no matter what we are going to dynamically assign, it can never be more than 2. No more than 2 trains can ever be assigned to this station. That's the upper limit. Here we go. That's the upper limit. Okay, so far so good. Then it will check how much is actually being available on this train station. And that's what we have here, 19. And that will be compared to the size of, or how much can be in a location. So in this case, one train can contain 8,000. So it'll compare to 8,000 by dividing it. And then we get the whole number of, now it says wagons, but it's not actually wagons, it is full trains. So this means because it's 19,000 available in the boxes, we can actually at this point provide 2 full train loads, not including the one that's already there. And then come the magic where it compares this number to that number, and whichever one is highest, lowest will be the one that gets sent in here, and that goes to the L, which is the limit. So basically one of these is comparing it. If the number of trains that can be provided is greater than the maximum number of trains, then send the maximum number of trains. That means if you could, for example, provide 4 trains here, but then it would say, no, you can't set the limit to 4 because that would potentially cause trains to backfill out into the main line. Not allowed. And the other one just says if it's greater than or equal to, then input the number. So out here we have a number of 2, and that will be, this is the reason why, well, it's actually not very interesting because it's both those cases. But the great thing is all of this here, that one is the fixed that you put at the input, how many trains you can have, and this divides by this train size. And then this is the logic of why you're going to use the max train size or the actual train size, goes in here, gets set. This one is for the balanced loader. You can see that these are flipping on and off, and the reason for this is that there's a desire to have an equal amount in each of these. So this is the what is commonly called the Matsuri loader, and it takes a bit of calculations because it added to all of it, so it doesn't work for like a 10k base, I would imagine, but it will work for this part, and it means that the trains will load evenly, which is an important thing, because if you say, for example, now that you have 21,000, but if there's 21,000 and they're all focused here, then you can't actually load the trains. You can also see the blinking here for this train that says destination full, because whatever it wants to go from, it is going towards the requester. And just as I looked at it, I was like, what is it? This is trying to go to the requester, but I can't get to the requester. And there. Requester is full. Yeah, it's blue. It's turned blue, so it's full. It doesn't request anything, and that's why nothing comes in. So let's use another example and look at the requester chest, the requester station. How does the requester station work? Well, at the core, they work very, very similar, which is absolutely amazing, which makes it a whole lot simpler. By the way, I am aware that I've forgotten this one because I'm going to come back to the last network here. So again, we have the maximum number of trains allowed at this requester station, and that will now, we also have the amount here located. This is set to 32,000, but we also need to have a location that says how much do we actually want inbound at this station. In this case, it has been set to 64,000, which then gets subtracted from the total number of this number in the boxes. So it's 64,000 minus whatever is in the box. How much is in here? 29. So that's the output. That means at this point, this station says, I would like to request 34,000 additional green circuits. All right. Well, the green circuits is then divided by how much can be in one train. One train can contain 32,000, and that outputs as the number of cargo wagons here. And it's what you see, and that means it will request one station. Then we have the combination between these two, where it selects the lower of either how many are to be requested, and what is the maximum number. It was 1, it went in here to 1, but now it has reset the limit to 0, because right now it's not requesting anything. You can see here, it's getting 40,000 in, so that means there's only 22,000 requested. 22,000 is less than a train full, so it's not requesting. This station is no longer requesting, and you can see that it has turned blue, means that it's full while this train is in here. On the other hand, if you look at, well, I also look at this one. This is also, we're just going to go through the same for the red circuits here. The red circuit has 41,000 in this location, and that means it is this one would like 64,000, so it's only at this point outputting 23,000, and 23,000 is not enough for another train, and therefore it doesn't request any more trains. This one as well, we can now go back here, it's now at 53, and that means this one, these two circuits, these simple circuits, and I honestly mean that in a simple way, you really don't have any mid calculation things. You're basically this is the only calculation, is these two things here. Aside from that, it's what you define as how much is on the train, how much you want inbound, what is the maximum number of trains, all those things you get in inbound. And that will, once you have this, it's easy to set up one more train station, because you can just set it to request. The question is then you get a very big system that's managing a many-to-many train network, and it all seems good, but don't you lose track of whether you have enough of anything? Well, that's where the last inserter comes in, which I think is really cool. So what it does here is, remember, this is a provider. So out here we're saying how many are we actually providing to the network? That's the number here. This one says, how much are you providing? I am providing 2 full train loads full, and then we're taking this location and putting on the green wire, and that green wire will go into the global network on the green wire. And I'm going to go up here, and on the red wire we will have the demand. So this one is, you can see the red wire coming in. On the demand, it'll currently have 0 demand. This one has 1. Oh, finally this one has actually gotten, it's now to 31,000. This one is 31, so it's now requesting 1 train additional, and it will now send the information to the global network on the red wire that it's requesting 1 red wire, 1 red train, and here we go, that's 1 red train. And as soon as that goes in, we are now stopping. We're no longer requesting any trains for the reds. Let's look at the global network here. You can see this is how much is being requested, and once you've set up the system, you can actually look at this and go, purple science. Well, you have 1 purple science requested, but you also have 2 purple science provided. Okay, so that's probably not a problem. But if you, for example, see now 8 copper locations requested and 8 copper ore requested, that's a lot. That means that there's definitely it looks like there's a deficit in the system, but you also can see that we have 48 on the green one, 48 copper provided and 31 copper provided. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not an actual deficit. There is a specific location that we'll just jump to. And we're now back here to this location that I mentioned, and this is now what is done here is the aggregate of all the demands and all the supplies and putting it in here. So at this point, you can see anything that is a positive number means that there is more supply than demand. Aggregate. There might not be enough trains to actually service this, but that's another thing you could do a measurement of. All right, we are standing too close to the rocket. Yeah, but this one is a great way to, great way to track it. And what you could do is set up warnings to this, and if anything goes below 0 or maybe goes below -1, so that you don't, it's not just a clip there, then you can get those notifications and give you warnings down here as well. You can make a dashboard to illustrate how many of each you have available. Those are kind of things that you could add sort of more flavor to it. But the core of the matter, as you're working with the space, you can see that this space is fully saturated. Everything, all the supplies are higher than all the demands. And that means the base is in a healthy state, which is extremely powerful to be able to monitor this thing and be able to do responses as you see the base progressing. Maybe you try to scale up things and then you're kind of unsure whether the blue circuits or red circuits are keeping up. Well, you're going to easily see that here. So that is an absolutely brilliant base. You can see here, we look at just other things that are sort of quirks and cool things. I like this power plant. It's an 8 nuclear power plant, and it's just basically saying every time there's a room somewhere in the water, then put it in. I like that idea of doing it like this, just having it with a landfill underneath. It does kind of limit how many you can build, because even building the next one over here, it might be possible, but it might also get into trouble, because this one, could that be built here? No, it cannot. So I don't know. But there's still, as long as there's plenty of room, you can just start stamping it down out here in these locations, and there should be more than enough power. There's a bit of solar power, but the majority of the power is actually coming from the nuclear, the steam turbines here. I've set it to always day, so that's why it's the peak performance to the day, but it's a healthy balance, I'd say. Other things, well, I think that a lot of the things here, the actual designs, we could go into those and just look at designs like this. But if you've seen any of my builds, you will also recognize that these are pretty much standard, these kind of builds, the parts here. And here's a different location, but it's just a really aesthetic base. It's something that I really enjoy looking at. It's the main part of this base is definitely the train stations and how you manage the train network. And I really want to make this train network, and this is what Ruspartisan always does. When he does something with trains, it's always really interesting and awesome. So I'm happy that I got to review this base and show it to you, because I'm blown away how well managed it is. Lots of small services gathered together, but you also have the global management of the overview. So it's just in every way really cool. So thank you very much to Ruspartisan for allowing me to demonstrate this base for you, and I hope you're enjoying it. And if you are sitting in with a base that has some interesting quirks, you can see here I'm not demonstrating the entire base, but I'm looking at the stuff that's unique, the train system. So if you have some base that has some unique builds, some unique designs, then let me know, share it with me in Discord, reach out to me in Discord, and maybe I'll take a look if I find that it's something that we all could learn something from. Thank you very much for watching, and hope to see you again here on YouTube, on Twitch, on Discord, wherever it is. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay effective.